Okay, today's Daf, Bezos Hashem, is Daf Ayin Hey. We will begin on Daf Ayin Dalet Amabez, about like 7 lines from the bottom, 6 lines from the bottom. Basically, what the first topic that we're going to deal with today is that, let's say we're dealing with conditions. Let's say a husband says, "I'm giving you a divorce." He says to his wife, "I'm giving you a divorce," but the condition is, sadly enough, that the woman has to give him $200. Let's say. And so she's ready to give the $200, and he refuses to accept it. How about that? So is it, and so she takes it and stuffs it into his pocket. Would you consider that as if she uh, fulfilled the condition of giving him $200? If she doesn't want to accept, too bad on him, or not. So that's what we're dealing with over here. So the way the Gemara, as always goes, the Gemara always goes first for another topic, and then comes back to our topic. So the topic that the Gemara starts off with, the halacha in the Chumash, it says that if someone sells a house, let's say in the old city, you have a house in Yerushalayim, in the old city, let's say. So if you sell your house there, the Chumash says that the seller has 1 year to buy it back. And we give him like an option for 1 year to buy it back. If on the 1 year anniversary that you sold it, you don't buy it back, then it's confirmed to the buyer. So what happens? And so what happened was Tanan Hasam. Let's start over there. The last the wide lines of Ayin Dalet Amabez. Tanan Hasam, we learned over there. The guy that bought the house, you couldn't, if you wanted to find him, you couldn't find him. He would hide out. Why? Today, he wanted that the seller of the property shouldn't find him and give him money. And by giving him money, he'll have to give back the house. So he would, on the last day of the anniversary of when he bought the house, he would hide out from the seller, so he would have the property confirmed in his name. The Hiskin Hillel Hazakim made a takana, a rule. Even if you can't find the guy that bought your house, if it's the last day, you have a right. You go to the rabbi's house and you throw the money into his office over there, and saying that, this is the money, I'm buying back my house. I can't find the buyer, and I want it back. And then that you have a right now to go back to your old house because you paid for it. You break down the door of your house, your original house that you sold, and you go in. The guy that bought the property and now has the money in the rabbi's office, whenever he wants to let him come take his money. That was Hillel's rule. In order to help the guy that actually sold the property, his house, under duress, with the right, give him the right to have the chance to buy it back without having to look for the guy that bought it from him. So Rava said, like I was telling you before, from the takana of Hillel you could learn in our situation. If a man says to his wife, "Here's your get, on the condition you give me $200. If he accepts the money, you give him the money, she gave him the money back, and she says, "Okay, mugrashis," then the get is a good get because the conditions have been fulfilled. Al karchai, but if he refuses and he doesn't want to accept the money back, ain't mugrashis. There's no get over here because he didn't want to accept the get. So giving it the money against somebody's will is not called giving money. Why? How do you know that? Since Hillel made a new rule by the Bote Arechema, by the house case, that even if the guy doesn't want to accept the money, you can just drop the money into the rabbi's office, and that's considered as if you paid for your house. So over there, Hillel came up with that rule that Nesina Bal Karchai, if you give something against somebody's will, that's good Nesina. Now we go to Daf Ayin Heiram Aladov. So Michlal, from here you can deduce the Bi'alma, in any situation, Nesina Bal Karchai lay have a Nesina. In any situation, Nesina Bal Karchai is not considered a giving. So in other words, if the lady, by the case of the get, would try to give the husband $200 and he refuses to accept, so then it's as if he didn't get the money back. and therefore the condition have not been fulfilled, and the get is not a good get. That's what uh, Rava said. Maskav Lora Papa, so Papa asked the Rava Vitamer of Shimi Barashi Vidilma. When did Hillel try to establish giving something against somebody's will is only when he's not there. The case of the Batei Arechaime is when the person that you're looking for, you can't find him. Then Hillel came up with the rule. In that situation, normally, if you give it against his will, if you throw the money into his property, it's not a good giving. Hillel came up with the rule that in that situation, it is a good giving. Avo b'fanav, but if you face the guy and bein midatoi, bein bal korche, having a sino, if you're facing him and you give it to him whether he wants it or doesn't want it, that's called giving. So what Papa is trying to say is that in the scenario of a man saying to his wife, here's you get on the condition that you give me $200 back. Even if he refuses to accept, Rav Papa is of the opinion that it should be considered to, if you stuff it into his pocket, it's considered that you fulfill the condition, and the get is a good get. That's the first version of the way Rav Papa, of the way we have it. The Ikedi Amri, others say it was the opposite. I mean, the opposite means the opinions are the opposite. Amar Rava was the one that said, from the edict of Hillel, one could learn that if someone says, here's your get, on the condition that you give me 200 zuz, Vinasana, she gave it to him, whether he agreed to it, to accept the money, whether he did not agree to accept the money, that's considered a good giving. So because that's, if you're facing the guy, according to this version, Rava agrees that certainly if you're facing the guy, if you take the money and stuff it down his pocket, that's called giving. So the woman takes the money, even if he's refused, don't give me, and you put it in his pocket, that's considered a good giving. So when do we need Hillel's takana? Shaloi b'fanav. That by the case of Batei Arechaima, by the case of the house, you can't even find the guy that you want to give it to. That there, Hillel had to establish that even if it's against his will, by the case of Batei Arechaima, that would work giving. Avo b'fanav, like we said before, bein midate, bein mekarcha, have an asira. If it's in front of the guy, whether he agrees with it, whether he doesn't agree with it, that's considered giving something back. So that's Rava. Maskef lo Rapapa v'tem Rav Shimi Barashi. Rapapa asked, "B'dilma, no, afilu b'fanav name." Even if you're facing the guy, midate en al kocheloi. Maybe I will tell you that if you're facing the guy, giving is only if he agrees to accept. If he doesn't agree to accept, that's not called giving. The Hillel, Hillel was dealing with the scenario when the people weren't away, and therefore he came up that with Shlei B'fonov, in the case of Batei Arechaima, that's called an asina. But if he doesn't want it, but it doesn't. Hillel was not dealing with in case you give it to him in front of him. Maybe Hillel will agree that even in front of him, if he doesn't want to accept, that's not called giving. But Hillel wasn't dealing with such scenarios. Hillel was dealing with people who ran away. So net, here's the point of the whole sugya. A man said to his wife, here's your get, on condition you give me $200. It seems to be that there is a machlokes in what Rava said. Either if he doesn't want to accept the money, that means the condition wasn't filled, and therefore the get is not a good get. But according to the second version, Rava said that if you face the person and the woman stuffs the money into his pocket, that's called giving the money, and the get will be a good get. New sugya. Amar Rabba, Rabba Baba Chana said, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, okay, he just starts off with a statement, and that has to do with our Mishnah, that Kol Mokum Shoshana Rabbi Shimon Gamaliel Shnasenu. Wherever you're going to learn Mishnayos, and you find the name Rabbi Shimon ben Gamaliel, halacha kamaisa. You know the halacha follows Rabbi Shimon ben Gamaliel. Chutz in three cases: Ma'arev, V'Tzaidan, Urayach Reina. Well, these three cases. Tzaidan is the Mishnah that we have over here, where in our Mishnah, which we'll tell you about in a moment, we don't paskin like three cases. You're not going to paskin like Rabbi Shimon ben Gamaliel. Okay. Now let's see the Gemara. A new story over here. Tanu Rabbana, the rabbi taught. Again, a man says to his wife, here's the get, but I own the paper. So what does she own? She has a piece of paper, but the paper with words written on it, that's her get, but the paper belongs to the husband. So basically, the words of the get are basically floating in the air because she doesn't own the paper. So is that a good get? So the Brisa says, Ein Magreshus. That's not a good get. However, the Brisa adds a very odd statement. If a man says to his wife, here's your get, but the only way the get is going to work is only if you return to me the paper. On the condition that you return to me the paper. So the Brisa says, Mugareshus. That is a good get. Wait a second. When she returns the paper, only then she becomes Mugareshus. But why? When she returns the paper, now she owns nothing. She owns a bunch of letters written on somebody else's paper. So why does the Brisa say in the second scenario that she's Mugareshus? That's a good get. That's Gemara's question. Maishno Reisha, Maishno Steifa. What's the difference between the first part of the Brisa and the second part of the Brisa? Amar Rav Chizda answered, Ha money, the Rav Shimon Gamaliel. That Brisa goes according to Rav Shimon ben Gamaliel. Rav Shimon ben Gamaliel says that conditions don't have to be taken literally. If there's another way to fulfill the condition, then we will consider the condition filled. So, for example, over here, Rav Chizda explained that Rav Shimon Gamaliel will hold titet lay estamel. By the case of Rav Shimon Gamaliel was talking about, a man said to his wife, "Here's your get, but on condition you're giving me back my Armani coat." Okay, somehow his coat is in her possession. So let's say she doesn't have the coat, she lost it, or she gave it to tzedakah after he moved out. Rav Shimon Gamaliel said you can fulfill the condition if you give her the money for the coat. If she would give him the money for the coat. Titin lo yistamel. He said, only give me the coat, but he didn't mean the coat. He means if you give me the coat, yes, I'll be satisfied. But if you give me the money for the coat, I'm also satisfied. That's Rav Shimon Gamaliel's opinion. But you note the Rabbanan disagree. A guy who says the condition is you give me my coat, and only then it's a get. Well, if you don't give the coat, it's not a get. So Rav Shimon Gamaliel says you could always fulfill a condition in another way, not directly the way the person wanted it. So in our case, when the man said, here's your get, but the condition is that you should return me the paper. So you don't really have to return the paper. The woman could give her money. So therefore, that's why it's a good get. It's talking about a case where the woman, instead of giving the paper back, gave the value of the paper back to the husband. So who really owns the paper? She does now. She basically paid for the paper, and that's why the condition has been fulfilled, and the get is a good get. That's what it says. Amar Rav Chizda Hamari Rav Shimon ben Gamaliel here. The Amar Titin lo yistamel. You can give money. Achanami, and by our scenario over here, after the mafaisa lebedamei. Maybe you can give him the money, pay for the paper, and therefore the money, she really now owns the paper, so she really doesn't have to return the paper, and now she has a perfect get, and that's why in the second part of the Brisa, it's considered a good get. So it says the Gemara, Maskiv law Abaya. Abaya asked a very strong question against Rav Chizda. When the Rav Shimon Gamaliel says that you can satisfy the condition by giving the money, when the coat wasn't here, then you can satisfy the money. When the paper is not here, you can satisfy giving money. But if you have the money, and if you have the paper, Rav Shimon ben Gamaliel would not agree that you can just give him money. You have to give the paper. So again, Ras, according to Abaya, we have back to square one. Why is it when a person says on the condition that you return to me the paper, it's a good get? Answers the Gemara Elam Abaya says Hamani. That Brisa says Rameh. It's a technicality. It's unbelievable. A person, let's say you can file, let's say a building permit, but if you forgot to do something, a small minor thing, the permit is not issued. It's the same thing over here. The guy made a condition to his wife, Almanas, you return to me the paper, right? Here's your get, but give me back the paper. That's not a good condition because you have to repeat the condition. According to a mayor, you have to double the condition. You have to say, if you don't return me back the get, then it's not a good. If you don't return me back the paper, then it's not a good get. And here he didn't do that. Whenever you make a condition, you have to repeat, double it. You have to say the positive and the negative. In our case, you didn't double the tanai. You didn't repeat the tanai. So therefore, we ignore the Tanai. There is no condition over here. He gave his wife a get, and he said, on condition you return to me the paper. But he forgot to say, if you don't return to me the paper, it's not a get. Since he left out something of the condition, according to Rameir, that condition is invalid, and the get will be a good get. So Rava says, Maskeflo Rava says, Talmud like Kaflik tonight. The whole reason you want to say that it's not a condition because he didn't double it tonight. He didn't repeat the positive and the negative. I'll Kaflik tonight, but if he did do that, like have a get that wouldn't make it a good get. That wouldn't be a good get because now the condition is valid and she must return the paper. So Michte, Rava says you don't have to say that. Basically, Rava is saying, I have another reason why you could passel this get. Even if you don't hold of that part, like Rameya, that you always have to double the Tanai. Michte, let us see. Call out Tanai Hecha Gamrina law. Where do we learn the hilchas of conditions? Mitnai b'nei Gad b'nei Reuven. If you learn Chumash, you learn the story of b'nei Gad b'nei Reuven. They made a condition with Moshe Rabbeinu, and they said, "Listen, we want to accept the property, the land of Eber Yarden as our inheritance of Israel." But Moshe Rabbeinu said that you must help the other Jewish people conquer the land across the Jordan. And they said, and if you do, then you get this land. If not, you don't get this land. So they agreed to that condition. But if you look at the way the condition is constructed in the Torah, first you give the condition and then you give the result of the condition. Ma hasam, just like in the Chumash, Tanai koidim lamasa. In order to make a valid condition, you have to state the condition and saying, if you fulfill this condition, then will be your result. This is the consequence. So af kol Tanai, in order to make a valid condition, Tanai koidim lamasa. You have to make the condition first and then say what's going to happen. La puke haka, here we have a problem. The maisa koidim l'tanai, because over here the action came before the condition. The man said, "Here's your get on condition you do such and the paper belongs to me." That's not the way conditions are supposed to be stated. Conditions are supposed to be said first. If you give me back the paper, then you'll be get. And since he did not do it in that order, therefore, the condition, it was no condition. So it's almost as if the guy's condition has been crossed out. And therefore, since there's no condition, all you have is a guy giving his wife a get, and it's a good get. The problem with over here, the second part, is because he didn't state the condition properly. He put the maisa before the condition. And really, it's supposed to be the reverse. The condition comes before the result. It's not really a question. Rabbi Aldo is just questioning. I have another reason why this is an invalid condition. If he followed the way conditions are supposed to be done, and if the man would have said the condition before the action, then his condition would be valid, and therefore he's basically saying the condition is you give me back the paper, and therefore you would agree, lo, you have a get, it's not a get. I have another reason why it's not he didn't follow the directions of how to make a condition. Where do you learn how to make a condition? From the Chumash. You learn the story of God and Reuven, you will learn how to make a condition. So my hasam, that in order to make valid conditions, the condition and the reward for fulfilling the condition are two different things. My hasam, over there, the condition was in one thing. What was the condition? The Bnei Gad, the Bnei Reuven should help their other brothers conquer Israel, right? And what was the Maisa? What was their reward? That they get to keep Ever Yarden. Afkol, so in all scenarios, that's the way it has to be. Conditions have to be unrelated to the reward. La puke haka, but we can exclude this our case. Let's go to the Heyam Beis. La puke haka over here is really the Tanai Maisa B'Davar Echad, that the condition and the condition and the reward is with one problem. It's the one subject. Here's your get. The condition is return the paper. So that's a Tanai Maisa B'Davar Echad. So those conditions are not don't fit into the rules of condition, and therefore condition is null and void. The reason why the condition is null and void, because there's a condition and a reward with one topic dealing with a get. The return the paper, the get, and then it will be a good get. So that condition doesn't fulfill the rules of a condition. So there was no condition over here. We ignore it, and it's just he said, "Here's I get here's the get to my wife," and that's it. We ignore his condition because he didn't follow the rules of making a condition. That's why it's a good get. Rav Ashi gives the final teretz. How money the Rebbe. That end of the brisa goes according to Rebbe. And really, when you make the condition, it's the Omar of Huna Barav, when he made the condition, if it's as if he's saying, you are Mugareshus right now. The condition could be fulfilled in a time later. So it's not like we learned till now that when you fulfill the condition, that's when you become Mugareshus. Because when she fulfills the condition, she doesn't own the paper, and therefore she should not be Mugareshus. No, what he meant to say is on condition that later on, at a later date, you return me the paper. Oh, so she first gets the get, and she's mugareshes. No, but she has to still follow through on the condition. When she follows through on the condition, it turns out from the time that she accepted the get, that's when the gets took effect. So therefore, that's why in the second part of the brisa it says it's a good get. New Gemara. A man's on his deathbed. Now, and he wants to write a get to his wife. So you ask me a question, if he's going to die anyway, why is he writing a get for his wife? The answer is because he doesn't want his wife to fall to Yibim, to his bum brother. Okay? So therefore, but the problem with writing a get when you're on your deathbed is that maybe you'll get better. And if you get better and the wife has a get, you don't want to lose that. So asking Shmuel Begittin Daf. Shmuel made a rule that if a guy's on his deathbed and wants to write a get for his wife, he should write conditionally. Im loy mati. If I don't die, lo yehi get. You write, then this should not be a get. Ve mati, but if I do die, yehi get, it should be a get. So you put it in condition that the get only works only if I die. And therefore, obviously, the get doesn't take effect after he dies. It takes effect now. But if he doesn't die, and let's say he gets healthy and he's back to normal, then the get is null and void. So now the Gemara just asks technicalities. Why does he start off, if I don't die, it shouldn't be get? The Lema let him say, since he's on his deathbed, probably he is going to die. Lema let him say, imati yehe get. If I do die, it should be a get. Vim lo imati lo yehe get. If I don't die, it should not be a get. Reverse it. So the answer is, you don't want to say, if I die. And this is a beautiful thing. A person should not bring something bad upon himself. You never say, if you don't have to say, if I die, that's, you don't try to say that. You try to avoid saying that. So therefore, you do it the reverse. The lema, so the Gemara says, let him say, lo yehe get im lo mati. Why doesn't he say, okay, fine. Let him say it this way. The Gemara has another question. It should not be a get if I don't die. You should say it should not be a get if I don't die. Answers the Gemara. The reason why you're bringing up the condition first is because, like we learned before, in order for something to work, you need the condition to be written, to be said before the action, and therefore you have to say, if I don't die, then it's not a get. Maskif la Rava, so Rava said, but the problem is michte. Where do you learn that the halachas of conditions from the Tanai B'nei Gad B'nei Ruvain? Ma hasam kain koydem lav av koil. Lapuka hacha the lav koydem lahem. Rava has another question. If you're going to say like Shmuel said that im loy mati lo yehi get, you're starting off with the negative, not fulfilling the condition, and then you're saying the positive, fulfilling the condition. But if you look in the Chumash, the way the conditions are written there, you first start off saying you're supposed to say the positive, that you're going to fulfill the condition, and then you have to repeat if you don't fulfill the condition. So, hein koydem lalav. So in our Shmuel's way of stating the negative first is incorrect. Elam Rava says like this. You say it twice. You start the negative. Im lo mati le get. If I don't die, it should not be a get. Im mati get. If I do die, it should be a get. And then you repeat, im loy mati lo ye get. If I don't die, it should not be a get. Why do you have to repeat yourself? So the Gemara explains, im loy mati lo ye get. If you say, if I don't die, it should not be a get, because you start off saying the condition that you're not going to pass away. A person should not try to say something bad's going to happen to himself. You don't say that. So you always say, oh, if I don't die, it should not be a get. Now you say imati, if I do die, ye get, it should be a good get. Im loimat, and then you repeat, if I don't die, lo ye get, it should not be a good get, because in order to make a valid condition, begin in hein koidim lav, you have to say the positive versus the negative. The positive being the condition filled, that if you die, and the negative if you don't die. So therefore, you have to repeat it again in loimati if I don't die. So we have hein koidim lalav. New Mishnah. Mishnah says again, all these are conditions. Look at the difference between the beginning of the Mishnah and the end of the Mishnah. Man says, Harei Zegitach, he says to his wife, here's the condition, but I manashe teshamshi is abba. You were such a good wife. Here's your get, but you have a condition that you have to serve my father as long as he's alive. Huh. So my old man still needs you, and therefore that's the condition. You have a get, but you always have to serve my father until he dies. Or al manashe tanikes b'ni. I want you to nurse our son that we have together. So the Mishnah says, since he now notice he didn't specify how long. So Kamehemini. So the Mishnah asks, how long does she have to nurse this baby? So the Mishnah says, minimum 2 years. Rabbi Yehuda says, he has to do it for 18 months. What happens? So that's the condition. Let's say the son died or the father died. Well, he said, here's your get on the condition that you serve my father until he dies, or in the condition that you nurse my son. But the boy died. Technically, if he would be alive, you'd have to do it at least till the kid's a 2-year-old. But the kid died. So harei a get, then it's a get because you can't fulfill the condition. Right? You can't fulfill the condition. You did fulfill the condition, basically, because if the kid was alive, you would have nursed it, but now the kid's not here, so that's it. But what happens if you specified, if the man specified, here he said, on the condition that you serve my father for 2 years, or on the condition that you nurse my son for 2 years, so then he specifically said, you need to be working for me for at least 2 years. So Mesa Ben, let's say the son died or the father died, or let's say the father said to his former daughter-in-law, I don't need you anymore to serve me. He fired her. Even before the 2 years are up, ain't a get. It's not a good get because the condition was that she has to serve him for 2 years or she has to nurse for 2 years. Therefore, she didn't fulfill the condition. The get is not a good get. Rav Shimon ben Gamliel says, get. The last part, if she was fired by him and the father doesn't want her to serve him, it's still a get because it's not her fault. Rav Shimon gave a rule: that any hold up that has nothing to, you can't blame her. Then it's considered condition filled and it's considered a good get. So let's just do another 2 more minutes and then we'll stop. The Gemara asked the question. Our Mishnah said, a man said without specification, he said, on condition that you nurse my son. So the Mishnah says minimum that the lady has to nurse his son for 2 years. So the Gemara says, do we need the woman to nurse his son for 2 years? But there's a brisa that said, even if she nursed this baby, just for 1 day, she's fulfilled the condition, and it's a good get. So how do you reconcile our Mishnah who requires you to nurse for 2 months, 2 years, at least 2 years, till the kid turns 2 years old, with the brisa that says if you do it for 1 day, that's sufficient? Amar Rav Chizda said, it's not difficult. Rabbanan Rav Shimon ben Gamliel. Rabbanan and Rav Shimon ben Gamliel. So the brisa says, the Rav Chizda explained, Mas Nisan, our Mishnah goes according to Rav Shimon ben Gamliel, who says that the person when gives a condition, he's doing it that you need to fulfill the condition in the best way possible, and where the most gain goes to the person who made the condition. Well, in that case, you have to fulfill the condition in such a respect that you have to nurse. The woman would have to nurse for 2 years. Well, the brisa that says nursing for 1 day is sufficient. That goes according to Rabbanan, who say that look, as long as you fulfill a minimum amount of the condition, nursing the baby for 1 day, that's sufficient. So now the Gemara just asks a question. But our end of the Mishnah, if you say that the first part of the Mishnah goes according to Rav Shimon ben Gamliel, but the end of our Mishnah says, Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel says such and such, So we can derive that the first part of a Mishnah, La Rab Shimon Gamliel, that's not Rab Shimon Gamliel. Answers the Gemara, El Brisa Rab Shimon Gamliel, who to make up tonight. The Brisa is Rab Shimon Gamliel, and Shimon Gamliel is always lenient by conditions. He says that you don't really have to fulfill the conditions all the way through. We see that Rab Shimon Gamliel says that if she, at the end of our Mishnah, if she was fired, we consider the condition filled. So Rab Shimon Gamliel is easy fulfilling conditions. So our Brisa that says you need 1 day to do the nursing, that goes according to Rab Shimon Gamliel. Masnisin Rabbanim, the Mishnah goes according to Rabbanim. That's the way Rav Chizda answered. Rava Amar, 2 more things. Rava says Loikash is not difficult. Kan Bistam. Here, listen here. When he doesn't mention, he just said, I'm giving you a condition to nurse my child, then we say that the woman has to nurse for 2 years. Kam b'mafarish. But in the Brisa, it's talking about a case where he said, I only want you to nurse my son for 1 day. Oh, if he specified for 1 day, then if she nurses for 1 day, that's enough. Ravashi says, Ravashi has a new teretz, and he says that even in our Mishnah, if he didn't specify, all you have to do is nurse for 1 day. Wow. All you have to do is nurse for 1 day. So man, because that's condition. When he said a condition, lady, here's your get, on condition you nurse my child, he didn't specify a time. What he meant to say is, nurse, I want you to do 1 nursing for my kid. So the Gemara says that's how Ravashi learns our Mishnah. Wait a second. Now, didn't we learn that a Mishnah kami miniktasei, and we're learning the Mishnah means how long do you have to nurse the lady? Shtei shanim. Rav Yehuda Mishnah nasa chodesh 18 months. Bishlam Rav Anicha. Rav actually says that's how much you have. Our Mishnah. That's what our Mishnah means. You have to do it for that time period. El Ravashi lami shtei shtan. What do you need to do 2 years? Lami lishma nasa chodesh. What do you have to have 18 months? B'yay mechatzagi. Ravashi always holds when a man doesn't specify the amount of time, all the amount of nursing that this lady needs to do is only 1 day. Answers the Gemara, that's exactly what our Mishnah means. What our it's exactly what our Mishnah means. Our Mishnah means not that the woman has to nurse for 18 months straight or 2 years straight. Our Mishnah means she has to pick a day within that 18 months or a day within those 2 years that the baby's still a baby, that nursing is considered nursing, and she has to do it 1 time. But once she does it 1 time, that's good enough. So the Brisa and our Mishnah are basically in agreement. Our Mishnah agrees that all the woman has to do is 1 time, 1 day. And the Brisa also says all she has to do, it is also 1 day. One last question, and that's it. Meisvei, our Mishnah said, Harei Zegita Amanasha Tamshi Saba Shtei Shtonim. Amanasha Tika Lias B'di Shtei Shonim. Meisa Bein Oisha Ama Avi Yeshas Tamshi Shlei Bava. And again, that's the end of the Mishnah, where he specified 2 years. If the husband died, he said, I want this action to happen for 2 years, and the son died, or the father fired her, that's not a good get. So we just do 1 line in Daf Ayin Vav. So Bishlam Rava, our Mishnah makes sense. According to Rava, you could read our Mishnah very sensible. Reisha, but the like Pirish. Reisha, you have to do it. The beginning of the Mishnah, you have to do it for 2 years, and therefore, in the beginning of the Mishnah, if the son dies or the father dies, so therefore, since he didn't specify it has to be done for 2 years, so if the son died or the father died, we say it's a good get. Seifa, but the end of the Mishnah, the reason why it's not a good get, because he said, I want you to be working for me 2 years. So the parish. So therefore, it's not a good get. Ela Ravashi, according to Ravashi, Mashna Reisha, Mashna Seifa. Why? Basically, the question is in the Reisha of the Mishnah, where all you have to do it is 1 day. But what the Mishnah says, if Beis Ben, if the son died, so basically what the Mishnah was saying, if you didn't do it even for 1 day, it's still a good get. Oh, so then why in the Reisha we consider it a good get? And the end of the Mishnah, if you didn't fulfill any part of the Tanai, we consider it not a good get. Kasha. So basically, according to Ravashi, we have a struggle to how to read the Mishnah. Okay, we will stop over here.
Thank you.
Okay.
Have a good night.
Good enough.
Go back
Yes.
and enjoy the wedding.
Go back to
Thank
the
you.
mall.
Yes, thank you very much. Okay, I appreciate it. I'll see you tomorrow in person.